watching 10 Minutes on Topic here on Davis Media Access. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Autumn Labbe Renault. Today, we're talking about groundwater in Yolo County, and specifically joining me is Kristin Sicke, the Executive Officer of the Yolo Subbasin Groundwater Agency. Kristin, thanks so much for joining.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
So I reached out to your agency because I was actually contacted by a farmer in the Hungry Hollow area of the Cape Hay Valley here in Yolo County, who she alerted me to some really severe groundwater issues happening in that part of the county, and mentioned that your agency is conducting an important public input process right now, and she was hoping that we could help more people know about that. So that's one of the things we're here to do today. Um, so you serve as the executive officer for this agency. Let's start by defining some terms, because most of us who don't work in groundwater may not understand terms groundwater, basin, subbasin. So would you kindly start by defining what those are for us?
Yes, no problem. So groundwater, as defined by this process with the state, they have created alluvial basins that they keep track of. And that is just meant to keep track of the aquifer beneath the ground that stores and holds water. And then basins are defined on their website more distinctly at DWR's website. They have the Bulletin 118 basin boundaries, but it's essentially meant to just provide you the water bearing unit of the kind of confined area of where this groundwater would be stored underground.
Okay. And then a subbasin, I would guess, is even more localized than that. Okay.
Yeah, the terms are kind of used interchangeably, subbasin and basin. So they're essentially one and the same.
Okay. All right. So tell us about the Sustainable Groundwater Act and how that legislation informs your work here in Yolo County.
Yeah, thank you. So the legislature passed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act in 2014. Prior to that, groundwater rights have not been subject to regulation in California, unlike surface water rights. And so with the passing of that, there was a requirement effective in 2015 for these alluvial groundwater basins or subbasins to have an authority or an agency overlying them and ensuring that sustainable groundwater management would be achieved. And so the requirement was for a new groundwater sustainability agency to be formed and to be essentially submitted or provided as proof to the state, the Department of Water Resources, by June 30th, 2017. And then they required groundwater sustainability plans to be submitted by either January of 2020 for critically overdrafted basins or basins that are extracting more water than they are recharging into the basin, or regular subbasins their plans are due January of 2022. And so once these agencies were formed, then there's this deadline to create what's called the Groundwater Sustainability Plan and to meet those deadlines. And that's currently what we're doing today.
Okay, so that's the process you're working with, and the deadline you're dealing with is January 31st of next year. So we're about 3-4 months out from that. Let's talk about the public input process for this. What kinds of input are you hoping to gather? In other words, who are you hoping to hear from? And then what are the various mechanisms for that? How can people participate?
Yeah, excellent question. So, unfortunately, given the past year and a half, outreach has been really difficult with that for us. We informing the groundwater sustainability agencies, we had a lot of public workshops where we were able to get people together in big, large settings and convey the information to a larger group than we've been able to do via these online or virtual meetings. So I'm so glad we're sharing the information now, but the main thing is that there's this plan that's been developed, and we want to ensure that groundwater sustainability can be achieved between 2022 and 2042. In the plan, we have annual reporting that's required. We have 5-year plan updates that are required. And so it's going to be a very adaptive management process where
Mhm.
now that we have developed this plan, is not going to sit on a shelf, but we do intend to actively implement what is in the plan. And so we're
Mhm.
currently soliciting public comments on this process to ensure that all stakeholders within the region are okay essentially with what has been established in this plan and what our plan or process is for improving it as we move forward. We open the public comment period August 25th, and it will be closing October 27th. And we have on our website, yologroundwater.org, we're accepting surveys, or you're more than welcome to email us at info@yolosga.org at any time with comments on this plan. But we'd really like to get any beneficial user that's within the Yolo Subbasin. So anyone who is using groundwater or cares about groundwater, or cares about the environment, to essentially read the plan and provide us with your feedback and comments. We think that the more people we hear from, the better the plan can be. So we just like to get the word out to solicit additional feedback on that.
Great. And you mentioned something that, the work is taking place now, but it kind of, I think you said it projects out to 2042, so 20 years. Um, I can't help but think right now we're going through so many changes with groundwater. We're in the middle of an historic drought. For one, we lack water all over the county, and I know that those farming areas out there, some of them are getting really hard hit. We're faced with fire all the time. So water is life in so many ways. I can't help but think that things are going to be remarkably different in 20 years, and what a daunting task it must be to try to plan that far out. So this input process is actually really important to anyone who uses water out there. I also want to add that there's been phenomenal changes in the agricultural areas of Yolo County in recent years. I'm seeing a lot more. I think the term I've heard is investment agriculture, where people are growing olive trees and they're growing vineyards and they're growing crops that typically they haven't been a part of what's historically grown in Yolo County. We used to be all about walnuts, and now I'm seeing a lot of olive trees. So is that the kind of thing that people can give input onto their concerns about the how far out this reaches? And I'm just kind of wondering how detailed people can get in their feedback. I think that would be helpful information.
Yeah, that's a good question, Autumn. So the Yolo Subbasin Groundwater Agency now is the new entity to provide any concerns with respect to groundwater.
Okay.
So the Yolo Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Plan that has been developed does consider changing land use, does consider changing climate, two very important things. And we will continue to improve and enhance those assumptions for future scenarios to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success and considering the changes that are occurring real time. To your point about the hardening of demand, or the conversion of some row crops to permanent crops or similar to that, yes, that would be something that you could definitely comment on as part of this process. It may not be completely reflected in a plan update. However, it would be information that could go to the Yolo Subbasin Groundwater Agency
Mhm.
as a general comment. We would definitely do our best to bring the information in as it would be, but the Yolo Subbasin as a whole is pretty large, and so as you can imagine, we have to
Yeah.
keep things kind of at a high level perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. You're dealing with a lot of different water issues and a lot of land here in Yolo County, a lot of agriculture. I want to thank you for
Yes.
joining us today. And my final question is, do you report this information to the Yolo County Board of Supervisors as well? I understand it's a state mandate that formed your agency and your purpose, but are the supervisors also involved in this process?
Yeah, that's another excellent question that I couldn't have teed up better. But recently, as you had mentioned, the drought is a really concerning item. And so the Board of Supervisors have requested monthly updates from the Yolo Subbasin Groundwater Agency on groundwater conditions. And so we are working really closely with the Board of Supervisors, and we hope to continue to work really closely with them because, as you know, Yolo County as an entity is the one that's primarily responsible for land use planning and for well permitting and things that are related to groundwater. So it's going to be essential that we kind of work hand in hand throughout this process.
Great. I appreciate having that information. Again, I've been speaking with Kristin Sicke of the Yolo Subbasin Groundwater. And we're talking about the current public input process around this. And as I said, Kristin, this is so out of my wheelhouse, and it is for many of us. So we appreciate the work that you're doing to help steward these natural resources. Thanks again for tuning in to 10 Minutes on Top.